Tyāgarāja Mahādhvajārōha Tāraka Brahma-rūpamāśraye Ganesha Guruguhaamrta Bhairava Somamayam Śrī Tyāgarāja Mahādhvajārōha Tāraka Brahma-rūpamāśraye Ganesha Guruguhaamrta Bhairava Somamayam Śrī Tyāgarāja Mahādhvajārōha Tāraka
We are here inside the Tyāgarāja temple at Tiruvaru, a temple with centuries of tradition and history in a mystical city, Tiruvarur, which occupies a very special place, especially in the hearts of music lovers. Because it is in this very city, in fact not very far from where we are standing here, where the musical trinity, Tyāgarāja, Dikshitar and Shama Shastri, the Mummurtigal as we call them, were born. Muddusvami Dikshitar and his family were especially very closely associated with the Tiruvaru temple. In fact, Muddusvami Dikshitar's father, Ramaswami Dikshitar, formalized the music traditions for the Tiruvaru Tyāgarāja temple and the various festivities associated with it, which are being followed till date here. We're here at the flag post, the Dhvajastambam, with which and about which Muddusvami Dikshitar commences his composition. Tyāgarāja Mahādhvajārōha Tāraka Brahma-rūpamāśraye in Śrī Rāga, set to Ādi Tāla.
The annual festival of Tyāgarāja Swami temple happens to be the Panguni Utsavam. It is a long festival which goes on to almost 2 months, and it commences with the Dhvajarohanam here at the central courtyard of the shrine, where the Dhvajastambam, the magnificent Dhvajastambam here, the Rishabadhvajam is hoisted on the Hastam star of month of Masi, which is mid-February to mid-March, surrounded by thousands of devotees, accompanied by the popular slogan of Tiruvarur, Arura Tyagesha, with Vedic chants and Mangala Vadyam accompanying the ceremonies. The Rishabadhvajam is hoisted. The Rishabadhvajam is so characteristic of Shiva temples as prescribed in the Shaiva Agamas, where the Rishabha is painted in red ink over a piece of white cloth. And this is a long piece of cloth where the rishabam is painted. And after the rituals, the Agamic rituals as prescribed to invoke the various devatas there, the Rishabadhvajam is hoisted, quite literally like a flag hoisting. The Shivacharya pulls it all the way up with the help of a rope. As Dikshitar captures it in the second half of the Pallavi, where he says, Taraka Brahma-rūpamāśraye, the one to whom I hold on to, the one who out of his compassion extends his arms so I can hold on to it, and he brings me out of this ocean of samsara.
You mentioned the Vrishabhadhvaja. Interestingly, the composition begins with a Rishabhaswara. Another thing that occurred to my mind when we were talking about liberation from the abyss was the Taraka Brahma Rupam, which goes all the way to the Mandrasthai. Taraka.
Deep down there and then he goes up.
Taraka Brahma Rupam Ashraye Ganesha Guruguhaamrta Bhairava Somamayam Śrī Tyāgarāja. The Śrī occurs at the end of the Pallavi and Anupallavi. And the Śrī is very significant because, of course, it signifies the Raga Mudra. which Muddusvami Dikshitar uses liberally in his compositions. So all his Śrī Rāga compositions begin with the word Śrī. For Tyāgarāja Mahādhvajārōha, even though the Pallavi doesn't begin with Śrī, when the composition wraps from the Anupallavi to the Pallavi, the Śrī gets added to the summum of the composition. Śrī Ganesha Guruguhaamrta Bhairava Somamayam Śrī Tyāgarāja.
And so the Vigneshwara Utsavam, the Ganesha Utsavam is a week-long affair here. So Ganesha, Guruguha and Chandesha, all three of them are taken out in processions for 7 days at a stretch.
Guruguha, of course, being the Ankita Nama, the signature of
the Vagyekara Mudra of Dikshitar. So that, of course, signifies Subramanya here. And so you have Ganesha, Subramanya, accompanied by Chandeshwara, who is the chief organizer of the festival. So he's here on almost all days of the festival. He's a part of the procession.
Bhakta Bhairava.
Then you have, this is for a week, 7 days. And then you have the Bhaktotsavam. At Tiruvarur, the devotees are celebrated more than even the God himself. So the festivities technically begins with celebrating the devotees. And this being a Shaiva Agama temple, you have the Nalvar, Jnanasambandar, Appar, Sundarar and Manikavachakar, along with Chandesha, who is also a Bhakta, and Adhikara Nandi. All these Bhakta Bimbas, as they are called, the images of the great devotees, they are all taken out in procession. Then you have a one-day festival for Bhairava. There is a beautiful Chola period bronze image of Bhairava, the Murtam there, who's invoked, taken out on the streets to make sure that there are no obstacles, there are no natural calamities which hits the town, so the festival can go on without any block.
Somamayam.
Then you have a very, very unique Murta of Shiva, who's in Tiruvarur called as Kaatshi Koduttar, or the one who actually gave his darshan, literally translated. Another magnificent Chola period Murti of Shiva as Rishabhantika, not very popular iconography of Shiva, where he stands in a very stylistic way and with his hands bent over a Nandi, who actually lends his forehead for Shiva to place his elbow. And he stands there along with Devi, Uma. So, Somamayam, or with Uma, Sa Uma Murti. So, Somamayam, Kaatshi Koduttar as he is called, Rishabhantika Murti, he is taken out on the streets for a day's festival. With that, the prelude for the massive festival comes to a close. So, Dikshitar has captured all of that in the Pallavi.
The composition begins with the Rishabhaswara, the Ri, and the syllable Tya in Tyāgarāja, Tyaga, is elongated, or as we say in musical terms, has a karvai of 3 musical counts, which is a rather long karvai. We also find the Śrī Rāga kīrtanam Śrī Kamalambike also with a similar karvai. Śrī, and of course the Chaturdasha Raga Malika of Muddusvami Dikshitar, Śrī Vishwanatham, also begins with the Rishabhaswara and with the 3 karvai. Śrī, and the landing.
Agama Pratipadyam Ananda Chandra Shekhara Vedyam
Agama Siddhanta Pratipadyam Ananda Chandrasekhara Vedyam.
And as he starts the Anupallavi, any temple in Indian culture goes by the Agamas. If there are any texts to build a temple or to conduct rituals in it or to administer it, the primary texts that we have are the Agamas. So they are the core of temple-based society.
Hence the Agama Siddhanta Pratipadyam.
The one who is understood by the Agamas and the Siddhanta tradition. Ananda Chandrasekhara. So he brings in the concept of Chandrasekhara. So for the next 6-7 days, it's the Chandrasekhara Utsava. So in the place of Tyāgarāja, Chandrasekhara is brought out. So Chandrasekhara goes to the shrine of Tyāgarāja and he is actually given a pattolai. So Tyāgarāja deputes him through a ceremony and says, in my place, go out on the streets in a procession and bless the devotees.
And uses the word Ananda Chandrasekhara.
Chandrasekhara, by the mere meditation of the form, blesses you with bliss.
Nagaswara Maddaladi Vadyam.
At Tiruvarur, the musical traditions are very strong. So you have the Bari Nayanam, the Suddha Maddalam, and various specific instruments that are only in the service of Tyāgarāja. They are also invoked as a part of the festival. And there is a detailed list of ragas to be played and the nadai to be played as the procession unfolds every day.
And it is Nagaswara, not
Yeah,
Nagaswara.
it is Nagaswara. It is Nagaswara, no doubt about it. Dikshitar documents it.
Dikshitar uses the word
Pretty well.
Nagaswara, not Nadaswara. So Nagaswara, Maddaladi, Vadyam.
Nama Rupa Tita Manadhyam. Swami's list of names, it just goes up. I mean, there is no end to the various names in which he can be called and the different forms.
Then we move on to the Madhyamakala section, which, as we discussed earlier, is unique to this composition because we have a Madhyamakala in the Pallavi, Anupallavi and the Charana portions. So here we come across Yaga, Shala, Utsava, Chodyam. We are here at the Yaga Shala.
The Yaga Shale, this is where the offerings are made as a part of the festival. So that's an integral part of the festival. Shiva himself is invoked. Tyāgarāja is in fact invoked in the kalashas and in the fire that is there, the Agni Pratishtha that has been done. So every day before going out on the streets, the offerings are made in the Yaga Shale and then the deities proceed for their procession. So the one who is understood by the activities of Yagashala, the one who enjoys the activities, the one who in fact manifests as the Yagashala himself. And Yamadhyashtanga Yogam. Tyāgarāja is Yoga Tyāgarāja. So he expounded the Ashtanga Yoga and also practices it. So as he sits on his throne, there he practices the yoga, the Ashtanga Yoga. Yama, Niyama, the 8 parts, it starts with Yama, Niyama, Pratyahara, Pranayama is a part of it and it leads you all the way up to Samadhi. So the 8-part yoga is practiced by Tyāgarāja and Yamadhyashtanga Yogam that he is.
Then we have a flight into the Tarasthai. Bhoga Raga Bheda Roga Vaidyam. Bhoga Raga Bheda Roga Vaidyam.
The blessings that you get by being a part of the festival here at Tiruvarur and witnessing the Yagashala Pravesham and all that is that he doubles up as a doctor, the Vaidya that he is, to help you cure otherwise not so easy to cure kind of diseases like bhoga, being accustomed to pleasure and no compromise over pleasure. So that is a major disease that people suffer with. Bhoga, raga, the passion that you have, that holds on to you so much with the physical world that you develop and you hold it on and you don't want to give up on it. Bheda, the differences that are seen. In fact, to understand that I am him or otherwise is considered a sin according to the Agamas.
Then, Bodhamrita Mahanaivedyam. Bodhamrita Mahanaivedyam. Like Mahādhvajārōha, there's a Mahanaivedyam.
So, the Charanam starts with the Vasanta Utsavam, which is the crux of the full festival. The day before Vasanta Utsavam, the tradition is that on the day of Vasanta Utsavam, Tyāgarāja Murti manifested out of the Mūlasthana Murti. So to commemorate this, the day before the Vasanta Utsavam, there is a Sahasra Kalasabhishekam offered to the Mūlasthana Murti, Vanmikanatha. There are 1,000 kalasams that are established and the rituals are all conducted. Ceremoniously, the water is used for an Abhishekam for the Moolamurti. And following that is huge quantities of cooked rice and other prasadams that accompany, which are offered to him.
Mahanaivedyam.
Mahanaivedyam, which is offered to him. But for the devotees, he becomes the Mahanaivedyam himself.
The Charanam begins with Srishti Swarupa Vasanta Vaibhavam.
The most significant part of the Brahmotsavam here is the Vasanta Utsavam that concurs with the appearance of Tyāgarāja, the Vidanga Murti, as he appeared from the Moola Murti, that is on the Kritika star of Panguni month. Coincidentally, that was also considered the birth star of Sri Muddusvami Dikshitar. This is the first occasion where Tyāgarāja comes out of his shrine and he is brought out in Ajaba Tandavam and he reaches the Vasanta Mandapam, this grand Mandapam where we are sitting right now, and this is where the Vasanta Utsavam is celebrated. The Brahmotsavam is also considered to be the elaboration of the Agamic fact that Shiva performs all the Panchakritya, the 5 acts that are only possible by him, which begins with Srishti, the creation, Sthiti, which is to sustain and to protect, Samhara, which is to destroy when the time is ripe, and Tirodhana, which is to hide and Anugraha, the blessing part. Then the night of the Vasanta Utsavam, around midnight, apart from the Mahādhvajārōhanam, the 8 directional flags are also hoisted. The Ashtadhvaja.
Ashtadhvaja.
So starting from the east, which is for Indra, so there is one flag with the Vahana of Indra, which is an elephant, painted, that is hoisted. And then to the southeast is Agni. Ram is his Vahana. Likewise, you have one each for each of the 8 directions. From the next day, you have the series of Vahanas in which Chandrasekhara is brought out. And so the second day is going to be the Indra Vimanam. Third day will be the Bhuta Vahanam. Fourth day will be the Samashti Gaja, the Gajam which brings in the might of all the elephants in fact. So Samashti Gaja. And finally the Rishabha Vahanam, which is the 5th night. 6th day is the Kailasha Vahanam. As you see just behind us, the Kailasha Parvatam, and you have the image of Ravana trying to lift it.
When you look at it musically, the text, even though it reads as Srishti Swarupa Vasanta Vaibhavam Ashtadhvajendra, but when you sing it, it becomes Srishti Swarupa Vasanta Vaibhavam. Ma becomes a Swaraksharam. So Vaibhavam Ashtadhvajendra Vimana Bhuta Samashti Gaja Vrishaba. Again, Ashtadhvajendra Vimana Swaraksharam in Ma. So Ma has multiple Swarashrams in this composition. And the Jaru, Vimana, again Śrī Rāga lesson for students of music. And it has a very distinct phrase which we don't find very commonly in Śrī. Bhuta Tarala, instead of Tarala, which is the more commonly heard phrase. Then it goes on to Ashlesha Maharathasthitim. Everything about this composition seems to be Maha. Mahādhvajārōha, Mahanaivedyam, Maharathasthitim.
The Ailya Maharatham is the tradition here, as Dikshitar also documents it thankfully to us. Because in the last century, 20th century, because of a lot of challenges, especially a little before independence, immediately after independence, financial constraints, political uncertainties, social changes, a lot of it made the Maharatham to its scale to be conducted as a challenge. There were a lot of challenges. In the late 90s, a couple of occasions where the Ailyam Maharatham happened, there were a few not so pleasant incidences, both at a national and a state level. So all of this put together made it sound like there is a jinx about the Maharatham happening in the Ailyam star. Around 2020s, we had COVID, so the Utsavam had to brought to a stop in between as it was commencing. The COVID lockdown happened. So the next year when the Utsavam was planned, thanks to the support of the temple administration, both the executive officer and the hereditary temple administrators, the illustrious Vadabadi Mangalam, Tyāgarāja Mahādhvajārōha family, his descendants who are now administering the temples, and the then executive officer, the former executive officer Kavita, both of them together accepted the request from the devotees and did their best to accommodate the Ter as a part of the main festival happening in the Ailya Nakshatram. For a proof for a precedence, the Ailya Maharathasthitam, the Aslesha Maharathasthitam, the part of the composition, the lyrical part of the composition helped big time to get this reinstated.
It's a remarkable feat that a composition composed over 200 years ago helps reinstate traditions in this temple, and that speaks of the social significance apart from the musical and spiritual significance that this composition has. Then we move on to Vishishtaharam, Krishna Gandharam. Krishna Gandharam.
Vishishtaharam. Krishna Gandharam as such refers to the Tirodhana or the 4th act. Krishna Gandham, as the name suggests, it's a paste, a very fragrant paste which is black in color, Krishna Varnam. That is a concoction of various herbs which is made into a paste. There's a long process to it. In fact, the list of herbs that goes into making the Krishna Gandham is a secret, which is one of the many secrets safeguarded in the temple. So the herbs are bought from different sources, and then there is a long process of preparing it, and it is brought to the shrine on the suggested day, and so that the fragrance is made as an offering to Swami, and hence Krishna Gandha Dharanam, which brings in the Tirodhana aspect. That is the 4th of the 5 acts that Swami performs. And interestingly, while Dikshitar has mentioned Srishti, Sthiti, Samhara and Anugraha, Tirodhanam alone has not been explicitly mentioned because it is Tirodhanam. It is hidden. Tirodhanam means to hide, and so he's just veiled it, and he has not used the word as such there. But Krishna Gandharam is the Tirodhana aspect of the Utsavam.
And the musical phraseology for Vishishta Haram, musical phraseology of every line, I think. Vishishta Haram Krishna Gandharam. That tadari, that ni, that plain nishadam is repeatedly highlighted. And then it goes on to Shishta Sevita Ajaba Nardanam. Shishta Sevita Ajaba Nardanam.
Sishtas are the devotees, and in order to bless them, a darshan for them which is so unique, the Ajaba Nardanam, which is exclusively performed only by Tyāgarāja Swami, is also a part of the festival. Whenever Tyāgarāja leaves his shrine, there is always Ajaba Tandavam. He is never carried simply like that. There is always Ajaba Tandavam, which is to replicate the way he balanced himself on the chest of Mahavishnu as he worshipped him in his Yoga Nidra there at Tirupparkadal, at the Kshirabdhi.
There are at least 3 compositions of Dikshitars on the Tiruvaru Tyagesha that specifically describe the Ajaba Nardanam or refer to the Ajaba Nardanam. Manita Ajaba Natana Prabhava, Manita Ajaba Natana Prabhava Veera Vasanta Tyāgarāja in the Veera Vasanta composition. Similarly, in the Gaula Kīrtanam, in the Anupallavi Madhyama Kala, the last line of the composition we have, Yogi Vijita Ajapa Natana Ranga, Yogi Vijita Ajapa Natana Ranga, Tyāgarāja Palayashvam, and of course here. So Ajaba Nardanam, integral part of at least 3 compositions. Then it goes on to Ashtapashahara Tirtha Prabhava Anugrahatmaka Pada Darshanam.
The Tirthavari, which is the concluding phase of the festival. So here you have the Kamalalayam, a tank which is as much as the temple itself in its size, a grand temple tank, probably the largest in Tamil Nadu. So all your pashas are removed by participating in the Tirtha Utsavam. And the next day is of course the Panguni Uttram, technically the concluding day where you have the Pada Darshanam of Tyāgarāja Swami that happens at the Rudrapada Darshana Mandapam as it is called, which is in the western part of the temple.
Śrī Rāga is a Raganga Raga in the Venkatamakin Sampradaya which Dikshitar followed, which means it is, for lack of a better term, it's a parent Raga, as we say in today's parlance. It is a Raganga Raga, it's an ancient Raga, one of the Purva Prasiddha Melas that were there, at the time of Venkatamakin and even before that. The rule that Venkatamakin made was that it needs to have 7 swaras, Sapta Swaras, in both the Arona and Avaronam combined. And in the case of Shri, the Daivatam actually doesn't occur in the normal usage. And the Daivatam, it is understood, was incorporated in order to complete the requirements for Śrī Rāga to be considered a Raganga Raga. So once the Daivatam came in, it had 7 notes, and once it had 7 notes, it could be called a Raganga Raga. And Śrī Rāga as a Raganga Raga is home to a plethora of Janya Ragas which are very prominent and which are very popular, such as Madhyamavati, Manirangu, Deva Manohari, the list is endless. And there's one interesting significance of this Daivatam. Subbarama Dikshitar in his Sangeeta Sampradaya Pradarshini explicitly says that while this Daivatam occurs in this Raga, right, in the phrase Padani Pamarigarisa, only in this phrase. Sani Padani Pamarigarisa. In the Avarona Kramam, there is this one phrase where the Daivatam can occur. However, he says that this Daivatam can occur only once in any musical composition. It can occur once and no more than once. In the Kamalamba composition, we find Shri Kari only in that phrase. So this Daivatam can occur only once. And in this composition, Daivatam occurs only once in Pada Darshanam with the Swarakshram on the Daivatam.
Interestingly, it is always the right foot of Tyāgarāja Swami that you can get to see. It's always the one Tiruvadi of Swami. The bent left foot is never visible. As you know, the Rahasyam of Tyāgarāja is kept there, and so the Tirumeni is hidden always with silk and flowers and sandalwood paste and jewelry. So twice in a year, once in Uttarayanam and the other in Dakshinayanam, you get to see only one Tiruvadi of Swami always. So as you say, the Padam that is to occur only once, pa and da. And here you have the padam, which is only one Tiruvadi which is visible as such. In Dakshinayanam, it is the Margari Arudra, the Arudra Pada Darshanam. And then in Uttarayanam, it is the Panguni Uttra Pada Darshanam.
So
but in
twice a
both
year.
the occasions, it's only the right foot of Swami, right Tiruvadi of Swami that is visible.
There's also a sense of anticipation when it comes to the Padadarshanam, I'm sure. I'm sure devotees eagerly look forward to the Padadarshanam, which happens only twice a year. Students of Śrī Rāga and even listeners of Śrī Rāga also anticipate for that one phrase. You know, when you're expounding a raga as a musician, there'll always be a slight notion of anticipation of when this musician will sing that Padanipa. And it heightens the artistic moment that's created. Compositions of great composers cannot be predicted. Just when you think you are getting a hang of how the music is going to flow, there would be a spin. There would be a googly. So here again, Ishtapala Prada Kalyana Sundare Shana Mama Dhatu Swaram and a Swaraksharam on the Ma. Macharya. Acharya is in the Tarasthai.
This part of the composition talks about the float festival, the Teppat Tirunal. As you see in this painting, the grand Teppam. It's a 3-story tall Teppam, locally called as Bangala Teppam. It has a fleet of stairs and a balcony, and it's a grand affair in fact. Today it's a 3-day celebration wherein the Kalyana Sundara Murti, that iconography of Shiva, where he is in the wedding pose along with Devi holding her hands as a part of the wedding vow. So that image of Shiva, that Murti of Shiva is brought out and he is taken to the float. And then you have the grand float festival, which is a 3-day affair, exclusive of the Brahmotsavam. But back then in the times of Dikshitar, there used to be a smaller tank which was exclusively used for Teppam, where again the Kalyana Sundara Murti was taken. It was a small Teppam, not as grand as this, a very simple Poon Teppam as it is called, just decorated with flowers. But today you have almost 800 people seated on the Teppam as it goes around. So taking the form of Kalyana Sundaresha, on the float, he blesses us with all that we seek from him. And with this, you have the Acharya Utsavam, wherein the almost 2-month-long festival has been taken charge of by a Shivacharya. So as a mark of respect to the Acharya, along with all the other Shivacharyas of the festival, all the grandeur of Tyāgarāja's procession is given to them. And they are taken out in a procession to their residences.
And this is in the concluding part of
the concluding part.
And we are in the concluding part of the
composition.
So this is a chronology of events,
Totally, undoubted.
And the concluding line, same thing. No. Just when you think you are getting into it,
he gives you a surprise.
There comes a twist.
The Ambikotsavam. So Nilotpalamba is taken out in a procession, but Dikshitar, being the Srividya Upasaka, brings in slightly the Kaula Tantra aspect of Ashtasiddhi, the 8 Siddhis, which is not a practice of other traditions. So Dikshitar says, Nilotpalamba blesses you with it. Ashtasiddhidayaka Ambikotsavam. And finally, the chief commander of the temple campus, who is Chandikeshwara, the chief attendant, so he is taken out on the streets for a procession, and that is the concluding days. The last few days is for Chandikeshwara, the Chandikeshwara Utsavam.
And Chandeshwarar gets assent from Dikshitar to the Shadjam. Marudha Chandeshwaram Shivam.
It's Arudam, to climb up.
Climb up.
Quite literally. And Shivam.
The final word in any Dikshitar Kirtanam is a study by in itself. There is a certain simplicity and a certain profound nature of the word that he uses. Here, we come across just 2 syllables. Shivam.
Ishtapala Prada Kalyana Sundaresha Namamacharya Prabhavamashta Siddhidaya Kambikotsavama Rudha Chandeshwaram Shivam Shritya Tyāgarāja Mahādhvajārōha